Good morning, friends. Today I'm going to be making a purse I designed called 2-in-1. It resembles two large pieces of puzzle fitting together, two in one, two pieces in one frame or one purse. So let's get started. I've got all my supplies already cut. All of my fabric is cut. Since I'm doing it in the 6x10 hoop, I cut my fabric 7x11, except for one piece, the one piece of lining I cut 6x11, which actually I haven't cut 6x11, but I need to, and I will before we get to that point where I need it. Anyhow, I'm going to take and place my hoop in the machine, and it will run the first color stop, which will be the outline of the bag and the outline of the place to locate the zipper at. So let me go and do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and the first color stop did run. As you can see, the place for the zipper has been stitched down, and I'm going to take this pink zipper, and if you have a zipper, number 3 zippers are what I always use for these kind of little purses, pouches, whatever you want to call them. But if you have one that is exactly an inch wide, and sometimes you'll get them where they're 0.75 inches wide and 1 1/4 inches wide, so you've got to watch. But I've found that this one is exactly an inch wide, and if you will line this side of the, looking at it, the right side of the zipper along the stitch line, the placement line for the bag, it should line up perfectly where it will be right in the middle of this area here. This is what I call the runway for the center of the zipper should be located right here. So if you just place your zipper down and put it right against this edge, it should line up perfectly if it's an inch wide. So you might want to check that. But whether it's an inch wide or not, just make sure that you center it right in between these two lines here where my finger's at. So let me do that, and I'll tape it down at the top, at the bottom, and also a little piece of tape in the center. So hold on and I'll be back. Okay, as you can see, I've taped it at the bottom, the center, and the top, and I'm going to take it to the embroidery machine, and the next stitches will tack it down to the stabilizer. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and you can see it's centered pretty well. The stitching has tacked it down so it's secure. So next thing we do, I'm going to take and turn the hoop over to the back side, and I'm going to take my first piece of lining, which I'm using this blue. I'm going to put it face down, and I'm going to place it, this bottom line right here going across, I'm going to place it about right here, about 1/4 inch below the line. So let me see, that looks like about 1/4 inch. And here's our side lines right here and over here, so we're fine. So let me tape it down. Okay, and then let me pick it up. I'll just pick it up like this, let it fall over onto the front, and let me take and actually let me tear off this. That's one thing about paper towels, you can just tear them off easily. Get that out of the way, and then wrap this. Well, let me grab a piece of tape first. Roll this over, fold it over, and then fold it over one more time, and use use your tape and tape it down because it needs to stay out of the way for the next 4 or 5 color stops. So okay, next then we take our front piece, and the way this design works, you should have a solid piece of fabric to coordinate with a patterned piece of fabric, or at least that's the way I'm doing mine. So if you are doing yours that way also, the next thing to go down should be your pattern piece, not your solid piece. So this is my pattern piece, piece of Moda fabric. I don't know what the name is, other than I know it is Moda. So stick it face down, and you can stick it just even with the zipper, and make sure it's, well, okay, let's see. We're okay on both sides. It's covering both sides, so I think we're fine. So let's tack it down 3 places. And then we'll take it to the sewing machine, and then a line of stitches will go right across here, and that will secure this top piece of exterior fabric, and on the back side of the hoop the first piece of lining fabric. So let me run and do that, and I'll be right back. All right, I ran the line of stitches, and you can see them right here, and also always turn it over just to make sure that you've caught the back. And you can see, yes, I have caught the back because I have found a couple times that, like on one corner here, there was no stitching. I had the fabric skewed, and there was no stitching like for partial through here. So I've learned to look at the back also to make sure that it's tacked down. So let me turn back to the front, and we'll take our first piece, this little piece of what I'm using as batting, which is actually flannel, but place that piece of either batting or whatever you're using. I use a lot of different things because this won't be seen anyhow, but it's nice and soft and will give a little substance to the bag. So put it about 1/4 inch under this line of stitches, and take your exterior fabric and fold it over, and then smooth it down. And I'm going to take it to the iron, and I'm going to iron it down so I'll have a crease right here along the edge. And after that, I'll take it to the embroidery machine, and it will do a round of stitches that will stitch right under, right here where my finger is, all the way around all 4 sides, starting right here underneath the zipper. So let me go and take care of that, and I'll be back in a few moments. Okay, I'm back, and the stitching has been completed. You'll see it's stitched right here underneath the right on the tip of the, underneath the zipper, or actually it's on the zipper, but right at the top of the fabric, and all the way around here. And then the next thing that will happen is that I'll put it back in the machine, and there'll be a placement line stitched where I'll know to exactly where that I need to place the fabric. So let me go and do that. Okay, let me see if I can show you this. It's very difficult to see. Here is the placement line, right here, down here, across here, and down to the bottom. So I'm going to take, I have already determined that this pink fabric I'm using is too thin, or it's thin and it shows through, you can see through it to the fabric here on the bottom. So I have decided to take and use 2 pieces of this fabric. Therefore, it's not going to be able to be seen. You won't be able to see through it. Obviously, you can't see through it now, but if I took one of these off, you could see this colorful fabric, so you don't want to have that look. So I'm going to go, and the next thing the machine will do is it will stitch the tack down for this, and then I'll be back in a minute. Okay, as you can see, the fabric has been tacked down, so I now know where to cut, and I'm going to cut starting right here at the top of the fabric, cutting right up as close to the stitch line as I can without going past it, and cutting the stitches, and then going all the way down to the bottom, just with the pink part, of course. So I'm going to go to my kitchen table and somewhere that's nice and flat, and I can sit down and trim that, and I'll be back shortly. Okay, I've done my trimming away, and the pink fabric matches basically this pink right here. It's not exact perfect, but it's close. So now I'm going to take the hoop back to the embroidery machine, and it's going to do satin stitching all the way down through here. And I'll be back in probably 10-15 minutes. Okay, I'm back, and the satin stitch has completed. I'm not a very good trimmer. When I do my trimming, it seems like I never can get close enough. And I know when I used to buy patterns from people, the satin stitch would be it wouldn't be wide at all. And I'd often think, well, why don't they just make it a little bit wider so it would cover the fabric? And I said, if I ever learn how to do this, I'm going to make big, thick satin stitches. And that's what I do, because that'll fix your problems, even if you're not a good trimmer, or at least it fixed mine, so you don't see anything peeking out here. It's just beautiful, I think. So just a little side comment there. But the next thing that I'm going to do is put it then back in the machine, and it's going to stitch a line of stitches across here, and then I will be cutting this extra amount off, and it'll do another line of satin stitch, which will go from right here all the way across to this other end. So let me put that back in the machine, and I'll be back momentarily. Okay, now as you can see, there's a line that has been stitched across this entire top here under the zipper, and I'm going to take and trim just the two pieces of pink fabric off right there at the line of stitches. So I'll do that and be back in a moment. Okay, now you can see I've trimmed off these two layers of pink fabric right through here, and I did a fair job, but and you can see also a little bit of the under fabric here, but I'm hoping the satin stitch will cover that, so we'll see. But anyhow, that should be the next thing, is a row of satin stitches going across this entire area here to kind of just finish it off. So I'll be back in a little bit. Alrighty, I'm back, and you can see the beautiful row of satin stitches, and it actually covered everything. This other fabric over here, which is going to be beyond the seam, so this over here won't be seen. So I think it looks great. I'm very pleased with it. Anyhow, the next step is to do some beautiful quilting. It'll quilt all of this pink fabric here with just a beautiful quilting fill from the software that I use, and I'll do that, and that'll take a few minutes, and I'll be back shortly. All right, I'm back. That took about 20 minutes, and you can see the gorgeous quilting that it did, giving the project a whole different look. And now the next thing to be done is to let the lining fall back to the back side where it belongs, and I can do this with one hand. Okay, smooth it out as best as possible. tape it down here on the sides. All right, turn it back over to the front. And one thing I'm going to do when I get back to my machine, the next thing that it will do is it's going to be a repeat of, I believe, step 4, where it goes all around right underneath here, down here, and back, and by that it is sealing the back or sewing down the lining piece. But I'm going to change thread colors to a pretty pink to match this darker pink, and it's going to stitch right in the middle of this satin stitch and give just a pretty little burst of color right there. And by the way, the satin stitches are 1/4 of an inch wide, if you were wondering. So anyhow, let me get back to the machine, and I'll bring it back after I've done that. Alrighty, I did what I said I was going to do. I put in, let me see if it'll focus, a dark pink, and it just gives a little different hint of color there. I like it. Maybe nobody else does, but I thought it was kind of neat. Anyhow, let me see. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to open the zipper. And this was a very long zipper, but it's the only pink one I had. If I can get it. Oh, wait a minute. I do have to take off this piece of... Oh, come on. This piece of tape here. If I could see it. All right, there's that piece of tape, and hopefully this will go on by there. Come on, yes it is going. Okay, so I've opened it about 3/4 of the way, and I'm going to take my back piece of fabric, face down, cover all sides with it, and make sure you are at least 1/4 of an inch past the top edge of the zipper, which I am. And then I'm going to take my piece of what I'm using as batting, and when I set the phone down and turn it off, I'm going to straighten this piece out so it's nice and flat. So let me do that, and I'll go to the machine. Oh, wait a minute, I'm telling you a story. I'm getting ahead of myself again. This is happening all the time. I'm going to put on my connectors for my crossbody straps, and I put those in. I just eyeball it about I'd say an inch in on each side. And so I usually line the metal part up with, that's not an inch, that's where it's going. And tape it down. Okay, and then I tape it down on the metal so it doesn't wiggle around and get underneath your presser foot, because I thought people were telling a story when they said they taped it down like this, and I said, oh, it'll never happen. And then I didn't do it for the longest time, and it did happen. So that made a believer out of me. Somehow it wiggled up there and got underneath the presser foot. So there's that. And I'll tape this down up here and pull this like that. All right, now I will put on the back, or what will be the back of the purse, face down. Put your fabric face down, covering the zipper, 1/4 inch at least above the zipper. And again, I'll put this piece of what I'm using as batting, which is flannel. I'll put that down, and after I turn the phone off, I'll straighten it up and make sure it's nice and smooth. And I'll take this to the machine, and it will sew all around the top of the zipper, the sides, and in essence it will close the bag up. So let me do that, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, you can see that they're stitching. Well, you can barely see it. You can see it better up here. The pink thread. It's stitched all around, right at the top about an eighth of an inch in from the edge of the zipper, and all the way around. So that closed the bag up. Now the last step is to take the hoop, turn it over to the back side, take your last piece of fabric, which would be your lining fabric, the second piece of lining fabric, and take and cover this other piece of lining. You want to put right sides together, so put it face down and have it cover a little above this top line of the zipper. So let me do that. Okay, let's see where that is. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and let me tape it down. Tape it on all four corners. And this will be the end of the sewing. The sewing will be completed at this point after this. So let me go and finish that, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm looking here back at the back where the sewing has tacked down this last piece of the lining fabric, and so it has left me a nice wide opening to put my hand and turn this bag out through there the first time. It's going to be turned twice. The second time's through the zipper itself. But anyhow, I'm going to take this out of the hoop. I'm going to trim this side, and this side about a quarter of an inch away from the seam here, on the outside of the seam, obviously. And then when I get down here, I'll be back and show you how I cut this. So hold on. Okay, you can see I have trimmed around these three sides, top and both sides. And now here I've left this. I haven't touched these two pieces, so don't bother with them. Leave them just as they are, these two lining pieces. However, the rest of this stuff here is just bulk. It's not needed any longer. And hold this back, these two lining pieces, and take your scissors and cut right about a quarter of an inch away from the lining pieces, and throw that away because you're done with it. So let me do that. All right, that has been accomplished. So we've just got these two pieces left. Now I'm going to I have to put the phone down or put the camera down. I've got to turn the bag out through this hole, and I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. Hold on. Okay, at this point you should be seeing on both sides should be a piece of the lining fabric. And what I'm going to do now is take this first flap here, the shorter flap. One is longer always than the other, at least it is with the way I make it, and turn it in like this. And I will take it to the iron, and I'll iron this down nicely, and then I will take and I'll tuck this longer piece in also, and I will iron it down nicely, and take that to the sewing machine, and then I'll sew a seam from this right here at the edge to over here, closing up the bottom of the bag. And then the only thing we have to do before we turn it out through the zipper is we have to just take this. You have to take whatever batting or not batting, but what's the word I'm looking for? Anyhow, you know what it is, the stabilizer. Take your stabilizer and remove it from the back of the zipper here, so the zipper is all clear to open up. So let me do those steps, and I'll be back in a few minutes. All right, I did sew that closed at the bottom. I took most of the top of what is paper towel off. I don't generally take this little piece off here because it's held down by two rows of stitches, but you know, if you want to, you can take that off too. It's really not necessary to be there. So I'm going to turn it out through the zipper. I've opened my zipper. I'm going to turn it out through here, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. Okay, the N21 purse is finished. I think it's just beautiful. I forgot to mention anything about the little connectors up there. Uh, in this case, it was just grosgrain ribbon, whatever the width is. I think it's 3/4 of an inch by 3 inches long, and I just take it and fold it in two, and I staple and I put the ring inside it, the metal ring, and I staple the thing together so it doesn't come loose when I tape it down. And anyhow, forgot to mention that. But I hope you've enjoyed watching me make this today. I think it turned out great, and I will, if you make it for yourself, I hope you create something beautiful. And I will be back hopefully tomorrow with another design and another tutorial. You have a great day. Thank you for watching.